Hey, this is WhyBeAre, and today we're going to be taking a look at my TurboGrafx 16 Mini and my PC Engine Core Graphics Mini. Most of you guys out there are probably wondering what the heck are these? So just a brief history lesson. The PC Engine Core Graphics is a video game console that came out in Japan. The TurboGrafx 16 is the same video game console made for the American market. They have completely different names and looks, but aside from that, they are basically identical. This is the original PC Engine Core 2 graphics. And if you look at this, you might already think this is the mini version because it's only about the size of my hand. And if we put it next to something like the mini SNES, they're very close to the same size. But no, this is the one from the 1980s. It was this small and compact. So it was designed by Hudson Soft, who nowadays is probably best known for making the Bomberman and Mario Party series. Although you'll notice, this copy of Bomberman was actually made by Konami. That's because in 2012, Hudson was absorbed by Konami. So that means the miniature versions of the consoles completely by Konami. But the original is a little bit different. After Hudson Soft designed it, they handed it off to NEC, which is the Nippon Electric Company, and they manufactured and advertised the product. It was first released in Japan in 1987, which was 4 years after the initial release of the Famicom, which is basically the Japanese equivalent of the NES, which looked kind of like this, except bigger, because again, this is the miniature version, because the full size wouldn't easily fit in the video frame. And it was a very successful console in Japan, so in 1989, they brought it over to the USA. It was not very successful at all in the USA. Who do you blame for that? Probably NEC, because the two main reasons I've read is, number one, the delay in launch really hurt its sales. And number two, it had really poor advertising. Both of which I think would be the responsibility of NEC. Not Hudson's fault. And there are a lot of neat things about this console. For example, the games were released on cards. So the game is actually inside of this case, which looks like it would just store a CD. But you pop it open, and you have a card instead. So the way the card works is you pop it out of its container, you get your PC Engine, you slide it in like so, it clicks in, and then you power it on, which also locks the game in place. Here's a fun fact. The console is about the same size as two NES games stacked on top of each other. Now, there are some video game consoles out there where just the game is larger than this whole console. Neo Geo. Everything is bigger when it's a Neo Geo. So if it's about the same size as a cartridge, obviously that means it slots into something. Where does that train of logic go? I don't know. But if you have that train of thought, you would be right, because you literally slot this into the CD-ROM drive just like you're slotting a video game into a video game console. Although there is this little extra cable you have to plug in. But aside from that, it's literally just like putting a game into a video game console, except you're inserting one console into another one. Do I have any CD games in here? Nope, it's empty. And that concludes the brief history lesson and look at the original console. Now back to the minis. Here's something fun. If you look at the back of the boxes, on the American one, it's rated by the ESRB, and you must be 17 years or older to buy this. You basically need to be a full-grown adult before you can play these games. On the Japanese one, it's rated by PEGI, and you just gotta be 12. You could be a 12-year-old and you can go and buy this, but you gotta wait 5 more years to buy it in the USA. Why is there a difference? Because the USA one is bigger and heavier, and little children's hands can't pick it up. Actually, the real reason is just because of the way the different companies rate things. You know, this one, it's all older style graphics, so it's like, yeah, it's not too bad, but I guess in the ESRB, they still see like, oh, it has blood and violence and stuff, so they still rate it M for mature, because the games between them are almost the same. There's a couple of differences between the two, but I don't think the ones that are different are extraordinarily violent. So now, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of the TurboGrafx 16 box, which means we have to pull things out, which sometimes goes terribly, sometimes goes okay. This time it went okay. First off, we got a little manual. Tells you the very basic operation of the device. And then we have the TurboGrafx 16, which looks completely different from what I was showing you earlier, because what I was showing you earlier was the PC Engine, which was the Japanese version. This is the American one. And here's something I find hilarious. This is the miniature version of the TurboGrafx 16, yet it's bigger than the original PC Engine from the 1980s. That makes no sense because they have the same internals. They played the same games. Why was there such a big size difference between the two consoles originally? Marketing. Thanks, NEC, because apparently the American market needs big consoles. And they decide, yeah, just make it huge so it'll sell more. No wonder the advertising was considered so awful. So how much bigger was the TurboGrafx 16 compared to the PC Engine? Well, I have the miniature version of the PC Engine here, and you can tell they're the same scale because the cartridge slot is the same size. And if we put them side by side, you can see the TurboGrafx is about double the width of a PC Engine, and then it also is a little bit longer as well. It's just this absolutely massive unit, again, for no real reason. One thing I do like though is they both have the stripes going across like that. At least it has some theming between the two. But aside from the stripes and the cartridge slot, they basically look completely different. And back to the rest of the packaging, we have one single controller. The controller does use USB, so if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could use it on your computer. Then we have a micro USB cable. This is not a Type-C, so it's a basic USB 2.0 cable. And then we have an HDMI cable. I really do not need more HDMI cables. Seriously, I already have so many HDMI cables. Please stop including them. I do not need this many HDMI cables. Honest question, if this console didn't come with an HDMI cable, how many of you guys wouldn't be able to play it? It's not even a fancy HDMI cable. It's just another generic HDMI cable that looks just like the other probably 50 or so I have. Now, if it actually had the words TurboGrafx molded into it, that would be really nice because then it's like, this is my TurboGrafx HDMI cable. I use it just for that. And if you're thinking WhyBeAre, they would never do that for a miniature console. Let me introduce you to the cables from the Neo Geo Mini. These ones specifically have the words Neo Geo in the mold, and they're color matched. The cable matches the console. So if you get a red one, you get a red cable. You get a white one, guess what? You get a white cable. They all say Neo Geo on them. That is a little bit going above and beyond, but for a miniature console like this, where it's really celebrating the console's history and stuff, going a little bit above and beyond is something I can completely respect, and I love when they do little things like that. Like for the Sega Genesis Mini, there was an add-on you can get where it gives you a fake Mega CD add-on, a fake 32X, a fake little cartridge adapter, and a fake Sonic the Hedgehog game that you can just pile onto it and make this giant behemoth of a video game console. And I absolutely love it because this is the Sega Genesis in its most powerful form. And I'm not going to bother with unboxing the PC Engine because it has the same stuff inside of it basically. The only difference is the console itself and then the controllers, which have a slightly different color to them, and then they also have different stickers on them, but they appear to use the exact same mold. And from my limited testing so far, the controller does feel very solid in your hand. I have really no complaints about the way the controller works. It has the turbo just as you'd expect for a TurboGrafx. It works great. And one thing that's funny is I have complaints about both of the consoles for how the power cables plug in, but they're for completely different reasons. For the TurboGrafx 16, you can plug the HDMI cable into this hole here, but there's no hole for the power. Where is the power? Well, you literally have to rip off the whole back piece of the console to get access to it. And when I do that, it literally feels like I'm going to break it in half. It does not feel like this is very strong plastic. You can see it bends and moves very easily, and trying to pull it off, I am very scared of doing that. Thankfully, once you pull it off once, you just have access to this back section here, you plug the cable in, and then you never have to remove it again. Well, one small change to what I said. You cannot actually plug the HDMI cable in, really, while the plastic is on. This is using the HDMI cable that came with it, by the way, because I wanted to see if that one would fit any better than the one I had, and it really just doesn't. I'm sure you could really mangle it in there and get it to fit, but if you want to plug it in, it's a lot easier to pull the plastic piece back off again, and if you pull it off enough times, it actually becomes much easier to remove. It's just when it's brand new and stiff, it really feels like you're gonna break it, but I've removed it about a dozen times and it's much easier now. Also, a weird thing I noticed is the power cable can be fed through over here on the left side, which appears to be the correct way of doing it, and then there's also a hole right here But if you feed the cable through there, it doesn't have enough room for the cable to actually fit between this piece of plastic and this piece of plastic. When it clamps down, it just won't make a seal because it's being blocked. It's like, why is that there? For the PC Engine, on the other hand, this one has a nice, easy to remove panel that you can just pop off, and then you have access to both of the plugs. Really, really nice and convenient, except what am I supposed to do with this while I'm playing? I am gonna lose this. I don't know when. It might be a year from now. It could be tomorrow. But this plastic piece will get lost because there's no way to like attach it or have it hold anywhere. Like I was hoping maybe you could kind of like stick it in the cartridge thing and it would stay there, but there's nothing you can do to do that. It's gonna get lost. And one thing that's really neat is the power button is connected to the card holder just like in the real one. And it's much easier to see on this one because the card holder is green. So you click it and then boom, there's the little card holder. And it does the same thing for the TurboGrafx, but it's black on black, so it's a little bit more difficult to see that. Wait a minute. Where did it go? Oh, dang it, it's lost already. Oh well, let's just go ahead and boot this thing up. And we start with a language selection screen. Obviously, for this video, we're going to go ahead and choose English. And then here's the main menu, so you have the cover art of all the games, and you can scroll through them to find what you want. Right now, it's organized by release date, but you can also organize it alphabetically. And then there's another mode. If we go down here, it goes to PC Engine mode. So all the games we're going to be playing are from the PC Engine, which means a lot of the time you're going to get games that are in Japanese. So if you don't know Japanese, you're not going to be able to play some of these games. For example, one game I know that has a ton of Japanese in it is going to be something like Snatcher, where this game, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. But it's a CD game, so when you start it up, you get this cool little animation that shows you like the CD drive starting up. And once that screen's gone, there goes the English. I guess Konami is, well, is it English? Is it? It's English characters, but it's not an English word, you know what I mean? But yeah, from this point on, okay, all rights reserved. Now, everything should pretty much be in Japanese and we'll have no idea what's going on. From all I know, it's a neat game. I just have no idea what's happening when it's playing. So when you're playing a game, though, you can go ahead and hit start and run at the same time. And that brings up a little save state thing. So you have 4 save slots. You can go ahead and save it. And then remember it for later. It does keep a screenshot too, so you know what it is. Although I had it earlier where one of them, it didn't save a screenshot for some reason. I don't know how often of a glitch that is, but there was just no screenshot on that one. This is Act 1 English. I know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on anymore. The English is gone. Yes. All right. Enough of that. I just picked that game at random, basically. We're not going to try to go too deep into that. The next up, I want to go over to the settings down here. So there is a user manual thing you can pull up on like a phone if you have a QR reader. And on that page, you have the manuals for the games. Unfortunately, there is no way that I saw to pull up the manuals from inside of the console itself. We can change the language as you saw at the start. We have a display settings thing, and it's kind of fun. So you have the regular mode we just saw, then you have a full screen mode without stretching the game. Then you have this one, which is like the regular mode, but it's stretched to be a weird ratio that I don't really like at all. And then you have this one, which really stretches it, looks really bad. But then there's this one, which looks terrible, but it's really, really cool. And with the first 4, you can put a CRT filter on any of them. But before we mess around with the CRT filter, I gotta show you this one. So this is like if you had the handheld version of the PC Engine, which was called the TurboGrafx in the US. We'll just start up any game at random. Doesn't really matter. It's another CD game. And then you get to see the screen and the way it looks. It literally looks just like the screen would have looked if you were playing it on the TurboGrafx. It looks terrible, but it looks awesome. That makes sense, right? Like, this is objectively awful looking, and you should never want to play this one unless you want it to look this way, in which case I'm weird enough where I could totally see myself playing a game like this for some reason. I don't know why I would. I can't explain it, but I definitely would. We'll pop out of here, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the CRT filter real quick. So I'll go back to settings, and then display. We'll go back to the regular one. Actually, we'll go to the one that's a little bit bigger. We'll use that one with the CRT filter on. And while we're here, we could also change the wallpaper. So we could put like this one on it. And then we could go and change the menu design as well between PC Engine and PC Engine Core Graphics. And you notice it just kind of changes the color theme of things. So you see the bottom, it comes red and blue, the difference is there. We hop on out. Now it's all PC Engine, nice and bright and beautifully colored. And let's play a game that's in English. So you go back to the TurboGrafx mode. And you'll notice at the top, it'll now say TurboGrafx. And when you put the little card in, it'll still show the TurboGrafx because it's putting it into the top menu. Like, it's a real slick interface here, I think. How about Victory Run, a game I can actually play? This one doesn't have a CD, I believe. Yeah, so it just starts just like that. So it has a CRT filter on it. Go ahead and get started. My name is and we'll get, parts. I don't really what parts I need. I'm not going to be playing long enough to worry about the parts. So just give me a little bit of whatever. You know, it's good. You give me a gear and a tire. Yeah, okay, great. And I should mention, I'm using the Japanese one here. And it really doesn't matter which one you use because you'll have the same experience except for the few exclusive games, which you can look up. And we're not going to really get too deep in the games because in reality, each of these games could be a short video. I was mostly focused on the hardware itself and then the software interface. So that's going to do it for this video. Until next time, this has been WhyBeAre. And remember, if you like or dislike this video, I'll know. I can tell by looking at how ridiculously big the PC Engine is. So do the right thing and I'll see you next time. Yeah, I gotta admit, the script for this video is pretty awful because it was a good base, and then I kept thinking, oh, I want to add this in, so I was changing the script halfway through, and it's not like a video game where you can really cleanly do that, so that's why there's a lot of those ugly edits in there because there's just no way around it when you're changing the script halfway through the video. And also, the video was a little bit rushed because I wanted to get this all done the same day I got the console to get it out as soon as possible.